So The Banshees of Inisherin is simultaneously the saddest and probably one of the funniest films that I've seen this year. It's directed by Martin McDonagh, and it takes place on a Irish Isle in the 1920s. And it's pretty like it's a beautiful place. This little island. It's it's got its rain here and there, but it's got vast open vistas, and it's got like a very close knit community, and everyone has like there's farms, and there's a nice little pub. But it's a boring island. It's plagued with a boredom where there's not much going on there, and people kind of like struggle to find something to do. And in particular, a folk musician by the name of Colm, played by Brendan Gleeson, is finding himself just in a bit of an existential crisis. Like life has just become mundane. It's become the same thing day after day, just a routine that he feels like is going nowhere, and realizes that I've been doing this for so long that eventually I'm going to die, and I'm not going to have done anything with my life. So Colm makes a very rash decision to end his friendship with his best friend Pedrick, played by Colin Farrell, so that he can compose what he feel will be like his life's work of like the ultimate folk song. Basically, he wants immortality. He wants to like leave a dent in this world and feels like he wasn't just that guy that a few people knew who went to like the pub every now and then and just hung out in his house by the sea and did nothing for his entire life. And so Colm just makes the blunt decision. He doesn't even explain this to Pedrick. He just cuts him off. He just says, "Look, I want our friendship done. It's done. Just stay away from me. That's all I'm saying." Doesn't explain himself because he doesn't feel that Pedrick could understand his problem. And it's mostly because Pedrick is, to put it lightly, he's simple. He can't understand like existential crises. He's not that well read. He doesn't, understand, certain terms like touche, and he's not familiar with Mozart. So it feels like he's a difficult person to talk to with these very troubling subjects, where Colm feels that even with like certain figures, he can't quite be honest with how he feels, just because the whole community is so close-knit that it feels like, word gets around fast and everyone's going to start gossiping about him. So Colm just keeps his distance. He's just like, you know what? Screw it. Just everyone who doesn't matter and isn't going to help me with my song can just stay away. And of course, Pedrick, because, this was his best friend, and, they had a great routine where they would hang out at the pub every day at 2, and they'd go have pints and hang out and just chat and do as what Pedrick referred to as just, being normal. And that's something that Colm can't have in his life anymore. And this is something that Pedrick doesn't want to accept, mostly because, because it's change for his life, and change seems like it's going to be bad for him, especially since he's grown used to this life of living with his sister, Slaban, I believe I'm pronouncing it. Siaban, played by Kerry Condon, Kerry Condon. Bad with pronouncing names. And his sister is basically like, yeah, I don't think there's anything more I can do on this island, so I'm going to kind of like take off and go for like a better job elsewhere. So Pedrick is going to have to get used to living on his own. And even worse, Pedrick is going to have to get used to having a new friend, which is the young kid called Dominic, played by Barry Keoghan. I believe I'm pronouncing it correctly. You might remember from The Killing of a Sacred Deer, and his little bit role in the Batman. Here he plays this very eccentric and very odd, like, horny young man who's basically, that's the best way to put it. Like, this is a kid who hangs out, like, he does nothing but talk about women. Like, he gets really creepy at the pub. He asks Pedrick very, like, weird questions, like, hey, have you ever seen your sister naked or anything? And just as he has no grander ambition in his life other than just to, like, maybe date Pedrick's sister and drink. And that's it. That's all he has going for in his life. So this is definitely, like, it's like I said, equal parts sad and humorous. Like, it's humorous because these characters do such a such absurd things and then try to find ways to deal with these problems that they're not equipped to handle. And it's funny in like in a dry sort of way, just, you know, watching them kind of like stumble over their own words and try to, you know, find better ways to connect with people when they can't. And then it's sad when you realize that, yeah, it's, you know, this is going to go into some dark places when, you know, these people can't deal with like dullness and the mundanity of life. And it just rips them up inside, and just, it literally hurts them. And this is mostly because, at one point in the film, Colm basically gets tired of Patrick, like, you know, coming into his life and trying to poke around and never leaving him alone. That Colm just says, look, if you bother me again, I'm going to take my shears and I'm going to cut off a finger for every day that you don't leave me alone. And just, he threatens with that and then just leaves. And it's like, oh man, that sounds pretty grim. And of course, everyone jokes about it, like, you know, oh, I don't think he'll really do it. Why would he do that? You know, he's a fiddle player. How's he going to play his fiddle if he cuts off all his fingers? What's he going to do? He's not going to do it. And you kind of laugh, like, oh, you think he's going to do it. There's even a great moment in the trailer where after he threatens to do it, like the dog that he lives with takes the shears in his mouth and kind of like drags them out of the house. It's kind of like it's a very like cute moment. You're like, oh, that's cute. The dog doesn't want him to hurt himself, so maybe Colm won't do it. So you laugh at that, and then your laugh slowly fades when you realize, oh, Colm is serious. And I'm not going to reveal how many times he does this, but let's just say more than you would expect. So this goes into some pretty dark places. Some pretty dark and very emotionally sad places, but like understandable levels of like sad where you're kind of teetering between like laughing and just like at the point of like tears in this film. There's a perfect moment where when Patrick and Colm meet on the beach and their relationship is at its rockiest, and Patrick, he has nothing. He does not know what to say to him in this moment to convince Colm that they should be friends and that they should, like, you know, mend their ways. And he just kind of like stumbles over his own words, just like, hey, have you written any good songs lately? And Colm's like, what? Patrick's like, you know, is music good? And Colm's like, what? What's wrong with you? And you laugh so much at this, like watching Colin Farrell like trip over his own words and stumble, and you want to like cry at the same time, because this is a guy who, you know, he's watching his friendship crumble and he doesn't know how to put all the pieces back together, and just kind of like watching him try to fix like this broken sandcastle of his relationships, and it keeps crumbling in the sand. Like, it's pathetic and you want to laugh at it, but at the same time, it's just going to get worse for this guy. Like, life is just going to get darker. He does some rash things. Like, it gets incredibly like vicious with like the revenge by the end of this film, that you're almost like worried that like these characters are going to kill themselves, let alone like come to terms with their boredom and like their existence in life. So like it's a little bit of like, you know, like some pitying going on, but also like some empathy, because there's a part of you that recognizes that, you know, you identify a little bit with like, you know, this creeping fear of like, you know, that you won't mean anything once you've left this world and that you won't have a greater impact. And as with like a lot of like dark humor that touches on like the existentialism, you kind of got to laugh at that just to feel a little bit alive. So it's this kind of like wonderful roller coaster of emotions, just trying to explore the, you know, the depressing nature of like feeling like there's nothing present for you in life and that you're going nowhere, and at the same time just laughing at the idea of, you know, just struggling to go somewhere with it, just because there's so much funny dialogue between Colin Farrell and Brendan Gleeson, which, you know, if you've seen their other films, like, you know, like In Bruges and stuff like that, you know they have great chemistry, and they have pitch perfect chemistry here, where they walk that perfect line between drama and humor, that you can't help but love. Like, there's like Patrick tries to seem intelligent by saying like, you know what, it takes two to tango, you know, Colm. And Colm just says like, you know, I don't want to tango with you, Patrick. Patrick's like, but you danced with your dog. Why won't you dance with me? It's silly, it's absurd, but it's like it's coming from a genuine place that you really do feel for these characters, and that you feel sad, especially with how this boredom becomes a disease that infects this entire community. So yeah, it's a very odd film. Like it's a hard film to recommend because like you don't quite want to recommend it as a comedy because you will laugh at it, but you're gonna feel like very very sad by the end of it, and you don't quite want to recommend it as like a very like a distinguished like period piece drama because it does have a little bit too much fun with that era and the absurdities that happen with it. Especially with a lot of like the dark humor they really push into this film. So I guess yeah, it's just if you like if you like your drama extremely sad and touches on like existential dread, and if you like your humor very very dark and dry with like a little bit of wryness thrown into the mix, this is just a perfect cocktail of a film.